Hey, this is Carrie with Canary Quilts, and this is the third month. I think it's the third month of Piece and Quilt sampler quilt along that Fat Quarter Shop's doing. They're doing it from this book, which is called Celebrate with Quilts by Lissa Alexander and Susan Aki. And I do have a link to this book down below. There are several, oh my gosh, 14 different quilts in here, and I think 60 different blocks. And so each quilt is made from all the different blocks in here, and it's kind of fun to work with. The quilts tell you which blocks you want to use and which sizes you want to use. So you go find that page, you build the block, and then you put your quilt together. So this is Piece and Quilt. That's what that's called. That's what's on the front of the book too. And so the first month we did this block. Second month we did these two blocks. Third month we did this 8-pointed stars, which there's 9 of them. And then wagon tracks, which there were 6 of them, and 2 of them are here, and the other 4 are over here. And tulip, my goodness, I can't remember what the name of this is. Let me look real quick. This one's called Tulip Ladyfingers. So that's what we're doing this month. There's quite a bit of work here in June to do. So we got a whole month to do it, so it's not a problem, but quite a bit more work than the last few months. So what I'm doing mostly with this is Fat Quarter Shop is selling a paper piece package that you can use to put these blocks together. Most of the block together. So the half square triangle, I can't see the papers very well. The half square triangles in this block are made with It's So Emma triangles on a roll. And so are these half square triangles in this one. And then this one is using the It's So Emma Flying Geese pads. So I'm showing you how to use those if you're unfamiliar with them. You can make this quilt without paper piecing. I find it easier. I find my blocks are more square personally. That's just personally for me. But so if you're unfamiliar with these paper piecing techniques, that's what I'm going through today. So hit the subscribe button notification if you're new here and you want to stick around and join us and Fat Quarter Shop on this quilt along or any of the other fun stuff we got going on here. But anyway, let's get started on our Piece and Quilt blocks for June. They're a lot of fun to do. I just want to mention that the color scheme I'm going for, I'm not really going for a color scheme, it's scrappy. I'm pulling from my So Colorful Fat Quarter bundles that I get every month, and that's a subscription through Fat Quarter Shop. And then last year, for a year, I got low volume Fat Quarter bundles. And so that's why my backgrounds look different. So I'm going kind of for a scrappy look, and I think it's still going to be as gorgeous as this one. So the fabric kits are probably available. They have 2 colorways. They have this colorway, and then they have the blue colorway, which you can see right there, if you want to buy the fabric kits. So just to let you know if you're new here, that's what that's all about. But anyway, let's get started on our blocks. I am getting set up to do Piece and Quilt sampler for June. And for June, we're doing 9 of these 6-inch 8-point stars. That's right here. We're doing 6 of the 6-inch wagon tracks. It tells you what page that's on. And 1 9-inch tulip ladyfinger block. And that's, this is page 86, page 91, page 32. I've gone ahead and looked ahead to see which of the paper piecing tablets or rolls we are going to need. So let me start with the 8-point star. To make the 8-point star, we are going to need the 1.5 by 3-inch flying geese because we need 2 by 3.5-inch unfinished blocks. That's how I found this, by the unfinished blocks. And we need 36 of them, I'm sorry. We need 36 of them because they're going to be on the outside here. Now this shows 2 color corners in each one, and that's fine. We can totally do that with this. It shows the center block as being the same color as one of these. I'm going to do a different color as my center block. I am also going to do like 5 of the blocks in this set of fabrics and 5 of the blocks in this set of fabrics. So they have a little differentiation. If you look at their quilt, they've done that. They've used different fabrics in their blocks. You can see it here and here. I'm not quite going for that look, but I'm going to do 2 sets. So 5 of one, 4 of the other to make 9 blocks. So that's what you'll need for the 8-point star blocks. You'll need this 1.5 inch by 3 inch Flying Geese quilt block foundation papers by It's So Emma, or if you have a different brand, this is what you'll need. But I'm using Fat Quarter Shop's paper piece kit that they sold for this quilt. You don't need paper pieces for this quilt either. I'm just showing how to use these because I bought the kit. Next thing is the 6-inch Wagon Tracks block. We need 6 of them. That's right here. And you can see we need 4 half square triangles in this. So 4 times 6 is 24. We're going to need 24 half square triangles. And we are going to need the 2-inch finished half square triangle because they will be 2.5 inches unfinished. So 2-inch finished half square triangle. I think what I'm going to use is the pink with the half square triangles, and then the green will be all my squares inside of here. So that's the second block. The third block, we're making 1 tulip ladyfinger block. And for this one, we're only going to make 1 block, but we need 12 half square triangles, and it's going to be the 1.5 finished half square triangles. So they'll be 2-inch unfinished. So 1.5 finished. And on the outside, this doesn't tell you, but if you unroll this, it will tell you that it's 2 inches unfinished. The other thing I'm doing is she did hers in 1 color. I'm going to do mine in 2 colors. The pattern, if you go to the pattern on page 86, you'll actually see that it's 2 colors. So I'm going to do the dark on the outside in the half square triangles, and then the inside half square triangles and the inside square I'm going to do in the light color. Okay, I'm going to go through each of these and show you how I set them up, and it'll be, the most interesting is going to be this one because I'm going to have 2 colorways, and we're going to have 2 different colors in our triangles, or in our flying geese up here. So I'm going to do that first. I'm going to do my flying geese for the 8-point star block first. I'm getting set up to do the 8 star point. We have to do 9 6-inches, so I'm going to do 5 out of these colors and 4 out of these colors. These are the squares I need to cut from my pieces, so it goes like this. I have 4 of my center squares and 16 of my corner squares, so I can set those aside till we're ready to assemble. And then this one is I have 5 center squares and 20 outer squares, so set those aside till we're ready to assemble. Now I need to make the flying geese. So the flying geese from the pad here, I've got my 20 pulled out here, and it makes 2 per page, and I've got 16 over here. And it does tell you on the inside here how big you need to make your blocks. So for placement 1, which is inside, and that's going to be my white color, I need a 4.5 by 4.25 by 5-inch rectangle. So since I need 20 of these, I have 10 papers. So I need 10 4.25 by 5-inch rectangles of my white color. Now, since I'm doing 2 color corners, it tells us for these corners, for 2 and 3, we need 2 3-inch squares cut on the diagonal. So I need 1 of each color. I need 10 of my whites, so I'll need 10 of one color and 10 of the other color. And then when we cut them on the diagonal, that gives us 20 of each triangles. So I need to cut 10 3-inch squares from these two colors and then cut them on the diagonal. All right, so let me get that done. I need to do the same thing over here. So we're gonna need 8 for this. For mine over here, I'll need 8 of the white, and then I'll need 8 of the pink and the dark green also, 3-inch. Anyway, that's what it is for me. Because I'm doing 2 different colorways, let me get my pieces cut and then we'll come back and figure out how to put these together. I got all my pieces ready for the paper piecing. All right, I've got all my pieces ready for the paper piecing. I've got my base, which is going to be my 1, and then my green and pinks are going to be my 2 and 3. I've cut my squares the size that they told us to in the instructions for the pad here. The only thing I haven't done is I haven't cut these on the diagonal. I was going to wait to show you. So I did go to put 2 together to make sure I knew what I was doing. One thing I do want to mention is this solid line right here around the flying goose that's the 2 by 3.5 inches. So when you're done putting all of this together, that's where we're going to cut, and that's where you're going to get your 2.5 by 3 inch, 2 by 3.5 inch unfinished flying goose. All right. So first thing you want to do is cut all of these squares on the diagonal. However you want to do that. I probably would have done this as I was cutting them, but I wanted to come back here and show you that that is what we're going to do for this paper piecing. So I'm going to get all my squares cut, and then we'll come back and we'll put one of these flying geese sheets together. Here's this color set ready to go. Here's this color set ready to go. I am going to work over here for now. Let's put these under here so you can see what they look like. So my pink is number 2 and my green is number 3. So I want to keep that consistent. So I just have to remember that 2 and 3. So if I do this, this will remind me that's the first one, that's the second one. And then our white is what's going to be on our base. So remember, we're going to be eventually cutting on this solid line. So when we turn it over, this piece we have here, here's our dotted line, is going to fit basically inside that piece right there. So that means we'll have plenty of coverage. You can see the dotted line is very far from this, so we'll have plenty of coverage here. You want to put your fabric face up. And I want a pin. So I'm going to pin right in the middle here. Pin my piece down. You can see I'm within my dotted line edges here. My fabric's face up on the back side of my paper. So we're going to turn it over. And we're going to start with number 2. And we need to pull it back, line it up on the number 2 line, fold it back, take my 1/4 inch ruler and cut it. So I have that 1/4 inch seam allowance on my white. I'm going to go the other side and do that one too. I've gone ahead and trimmed where my number 2 is along that line. So I've got my 1/4 inch seams. Remember, number 2, if you're doing 2 different colors, my number 2 is my pink. So just make sure you keep track of that when you're doing this. So you can see right here, here's my corner. Here's the corner of the block that I need to get to. So I'm going to just kind of eyeball my corner with that corner. I'm going to line it up so that my seams, or the edges of my fabric, I should say, are together. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to sew on the line between 1 and 2, starting about right there, coming up, and I'm going to put a lock stitch in right there. And I'm going to repeat for the other number 2 on the other side. All right, there's my 2 seams right here. And you can see I stopped right there at that intersection. Put a lock stitch in. Now you can take your pin out. And we're going to go over to the iron and we're going to iron these towards the corner. There's my corners. Iron towards the corner. Now we're going to turn it back over and we're going to fold over on the line below 3. And we will trim this up. And my number 3 is the green corner, so I want to take a green triangle. And again, I'm just going to, there's the edge of my flying goose. I'm just going to eyeball that this point is lined up with that point. And I'm going to sew these on this line right here. And remember, I forgot to say this, but remember that you want to have your stitch on a lower stitch length so that it perforates the paper and makes it easier to rip off in the end. All right, there's the other side sewn on. Now I want to go over the iron and iron these towards the corner also. And there we go. That's what it looks like before we get it all trimmed up. So we're going to turn it back over to trim it. And it even says trim on this line, which is this solid line right here. So all the way around, we want to trim on the solid line. So I'm going to trim all the outside edges first on that solid line. There's my outside edges. Now I want to trim on these 2 lines in here to get our 2 flying geese. There we go. You can see that I got the pink and the green on the correct side. And they're nice and rectangular, and they're the size that we need for our block. So what I am going to do, I'm going to repeat what I just did with the rest of my pieces here, except I'm going to do them all at the same time. I'm going to pin all my bases on, then I'm going to trim all my 2s, and then I'm going to sew all my 2s on, and then I'm going to trim for my 3s and sew my 3s on. So I'm going to do them all at the same time. So I'm either here at my cutting board, and then over at my machine, and then over at my iron for all of them at the same time. All right, then we can put our block together when we're done. There's the flying geese all trimmed up, and I've got my blocks laid out. I've got 5 here, 4 here, so I have 9. At this point, the pattern will tell you how to put this together. It isn't any different from here. My goal here was to show you how to use these papers, the 1.5 inch by 3 inch flying geese quilt foundation papers. It also gives you instructions on how to use them here as well as cutting. So there you go. I think they turned out really nice. At this point, you can pull your papers off or you can leave them on. I personally leave them on until my quilt is put together. That's how I like to do it. So I'm going to get my blocks assembled and I'll show you what they look like when I'm done. I finished up my 8-point stars in my 2 colorways. Went together great. So those are done for this month. The next thing we want to head to is the 6-inch wagon tracks block. We need 6 of these blocks, and the blue and white you see right here is a half square triangle. So we need 4 per block. So that's 24 half square triangles that we're going to have to make. I'm going to put my green aside because my half square triangles are going to be made from the pink. So these are the 2 colors I'm going to be using. We need the 2-inch finished half square triangle roll. And each strip here does 4 half square triangles. So we need 6 rows. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm just going to cut right along that solid line right there. All right. So let's see how this fits on my fat quarters. Let's start with the white. All right, look at that. I can cut one entire strip from this fat quarter right here. So that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut a strip. I want to make sure that my strip basically is wider than my paper here. And I have some over here also. So I'm just going to cut right up here and right there. All right, that's what I need for my white. And then I'm going to use my white strip to cut my pink strip. You don't have to do it that way. That's just how I'm going to do it. So I'm going to just line up my selvages, straighten my fabric out. Doesn't need to be perfect. We're paper piecing. So there we go. All right. That's for my paper piece. So to do this paper piece, we literally just need to put right sides together. All right, I got right sides together. We're going to lay our paper down so that it has fabric all the way around it on both colors, and then we're going to pin it just in some strategic spots. So I'm going to pin here. You don't want your pin to go into these dashed lines because that's where we're going to be sewing. I'm going to pin in the middle of here, in the middle of here, and then I'll pin right here. All right, we are ready to sew now. So what we can do is just follow the arrows on the dash line. So we're going to sew. Remember to set your stitch length at a lower value, like my default is 2.2. I have it set at 1.6, and we're going to follow the arrows, and we're going to sew right on the dotted line. So just follow the arrows all the way down. You can zigzag like this. Come back, zigzag back up, and then come back over here, start here, and just keep following the dash lines and the arrows until you have them all sewn up. So I am going to go over to my machine and get that all done and show you what it looks like. There are all my stitching lines right here. You can see them in red. So what we want to do now is we want to cut on the solid line. Actually, I want a longer ruler. I'm going to cut first along the edges, along this solid line right here. I try to cut my longest edges first. That way we have less cuts we have to do. So that usually means the outside edges. All right. Now I am going to cut right up the middle here. At this point, you can start cutting wherever you want to. All right, I can get rid of the long one. And now all I need is a short one. So we can start cutting our squares out. All right, now my squares are cut, so we're going to cut on the diagonal. And that's how we'll get our half square triangle blocks. There we go. So I'm going to get all of these cut, and I'll look in the pattern to see which way we need to iron them. I'm not sure. But you can look in the pattern, see which way to iron your half square triangles, and that's how you do them. It's pretty easy. It's pretty fun. It gives you nice square, half square triangles in the end. There's no trimming. So I really like doing it this way. I like it a lot. I've done a lot of paper piecing this year. Here's my half square triangles. They're cut up. I did cut the little ears off, the dog ears. And then I need to finish the block up by doing, I think there's 5 4 patches per block. So I'm going to need 5 times 6, 34 patches. So I'm going to get that done and we'll come back and I'll lay the block out so you can see what it looks like. I got my 4 patches done. I've got the layout here for our wagon tracks. I have them in piles of 6 so I can get 6 of these done. But just wanted to show you what it looks like before I put it together. The pattern tells you how to put this together, and then we'll put the blocks that go into the quilt together. And there's one of them right there. There's my wagon tracks block, I think is what it's called. It took a little bit to put together. Took a little bit of time, I should say. So I have 6 of these. We need 2 different blocks out of these. If you look at the pattern, they have you build one now, and then the other one goes in a different row and you build that later, but I'm going to do them both now. So the first block is going to be like this, and the quilt pattern in the book tells you what size to cut these. So that's going to be my first block. I'm going to put these together, iron towards the patches, and then they'll nest, and then I'll have my block there. So the next block we're going to put together is we want our, basically this chain here to form an X in the middle. So that's how this block is going to go together. And we'll have one of these and we'll have one of these. So I'm going to match up all my seams everywhere in these blocks, and then I'm going to probably iron in opposite directions so that this center block will nest. And then this block will be done for a later row. This is going in the first row with the blocks we just built in the last 2 months. There we go. That's what we get out of our 6 wagon tracks blocks that we did. And mostly what I wanted to show you was how to do the half square triangles out of the It's So Emma rolls. So there you go. These are finished and we are going on to the next one for this month. Luckily, there's only one of those blocks. Our last block for this month is the 9-inch tulip ladyfinger block on page 86. We only have to make one of those. So phew. They show one color here. I'm doing 2 color. My darker color is going to be the outside, and then my lighter color is going to be the inside. So I'm going to show you how I figure out how to do my half square triangles for this block for the 2 different colors. And what we are going to need for this one is 1.5 inch finished half square triangles so that you get a 2-inch unfinished little half square triangle block. All right, so let me get set up and show you how I am going to do these, how I get my fabrics cut and figured out. Here's our 1.5 finished papers opened up. I need a total of 12. I need 8 of the dark and 4 of the light. So each row does 8. So I'm going to cut one row that I'll use for my dark, and then I'm just going to cut a section out here of 4 to use on the light, because there may be another block in the future that I only need 4 of these. So I'm going to keep those intact. So first thing I'm going to do is just cut right on this solid line. And then I'm going to do the same thing here, is cut on this solid line. Well, there we go. There's 8 of one color and 4 of another. I need 8, oops, fans on. Need 8 of the dark. So I'm going to cut this out. It's a paper piece, so you can just cut wider than what you need. And from the light, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I have a feeling this might be a really pretty block. There's my light. All right, so dark and light are done. Again, I am going to use these, my darker fabrics, my colored fabrics to cut what I need from this. Okay, there's one. And here's the other one. All right, so we're going to do the same thing with these. We are going to put our right sides of fabric together. We're going to take our pieces of paper that we cut out, and we need to pin them down so that there's fabric on all four sides that's coming out. I'm going to pin it where there are no seams. There we go, there's that one. I'll do the same thing for this one. So there we go. I'm all pinned up. I'm ready to go. And just like on the last one, I'm going to sew on this dashed line in the directions the arrows tell me to. So I'm going to start there, come over here, and then come back up and down. Same thing down here. So I'll get these sewn up and we'll take a look at them. I've got these sewn up. I've sewn on all the dashed lines in the direction of the arrows. So now we will cut on these solid lines. Well, I guess this one isn't long enough, but it will work. So I like to cut my edges first. The longest edges first. There we go. There's my long edges. Now I can just start cutting along on the short edges. So I'm going to get this finished up. I'm going to look at the pattern to see which way to iron these. Usually it's towards the dark, but we'll see. I haven't looked at the pattern. There's a half square triangle. I love these. These are great. There's my half square triangles. I've trimmed the little dog ears off. And I have cut the rest of the pieces I need for this block. So to lay this block out, the dark pieces are going to go on the outside and they're going to point towards each other. And then a light piece is going to go inside this corner. So we're building a corner like that. So that's how our corners are going to look. And then these lighter pieces, that's the piece we're going for. I'll go like this. And let's see, it needs to be pointing. All right, so there's my block laid out. I'm going to go back to the pattern, put it together, and basically we got to build these four corners, figure out which way to iron these open. But again, I'm just mostly going through how to use the It's So Emma triangles on a roll is what they're called. For the paper piecing portion of this. There is my last block, Tulip. Tulip Ladyfingers is what it's called, with the half square triangles. So there we go. We had a lot to do this month, very surprisingly. So we have a month to get this done before we move on. You'll have plenty of time to get it done. It took me probably, it could have taken me about an entire day to do this. To do all these blocks. This is a lot of work, so spread it out over the month for yourself. I showed you how to use the Flying Geese pads, and we did some more half square triangles with the triangles on a roll by It's So Emma. All these are by It's So Emma. I love using these, and makes my blocks turn out really square, really pretty. I'm really happy with them. So I'm going to go out onto hashtag Piece Quilt Sampler QAL, see everybody's blocks, see what they're doing, what colors they're doing. I'm not using their kit, so my colors are very different. And I'm looking forward to seeing what everybody else's blocks look like. So Thank you so much for commenting. Thank you so much for following. I know some people are having a hard time figuring out which one of these to use from the book because the book doesn't tell you which one of these to use. So I hope that I'm helping you figure that out and figure out how to paper piece if you've never done it. I love it. I think it just makes my blocks so pretty and square. But anyway, hit the subscribe button, notification bell, and I will see you next month for the next piece and quilt sampler blocks. Bye!